I do think Carson Beck, I would put in the first round conversation. Now, if he had come out last year, he may have been drafted after the 6 first rounders we saw last year. But obviously, it was only because he only had 1 year of starting experience. That's always going to get held against guys. And I think he made the right decision to come back and can make himself a good deal of money in doing so and could push his way to the top 5. But to me, he's just the cleanest in this class. But there may not be that surefire guy, but I think there's a lot of depth in this year's class. I think we only had 11 guys actually draft at the quarterback position last year. I think should all these guys declare, obviously, which is always a unique conversation of who comes and who stays. But should all these guys declare, I think you'd see more than 11 guys drafted and more guys in that mid-tier, at least at this moment in time, in sort of that 3rd, 4th round range where we just didn't see guys come off the board a year ago. So to me, Beck is just like the cleanest. He may not have a ton of high end on his tape, but there's definitely not a ton of low end. I think he's got a good, not great arm, really clean release, really clean from the pocket where you need to win. Obviously, when projecting to the NFL, I thought he was fairly calm under pressure for it being his very first season as a starter. But again, I need to see him get a little more aggressive. He has a conservative streak to him, get a little more aggressive down the football field. And I think he could easily play his way into a top 3 to 5 pick.
So we'll circle back and talk about draft ranges and comps in a second. But Rick, one of the things I've talked to you about over the course of this podcast is trying to figure out what a good arm looks like on tape. I thought Carson had a pretty good arm. I was surprised. To Mike's point, he's playing in a system at Georgia. It's sort of like the Brock Purdy syndrome, where is he asked to do a lot necessarily? Maybe not, but I think he makes a lot of good throws. I thought he made good decisions. He's a better athlete than I thought, and he was able to layer the ball well. And in addition to that arm strength, do you share the concerns that Mike has? Anything differently? What do you think about Carson Beck?
Yeah, when I watched him, I think he has timing and touch. I think he's a little bit more of a rhythmic type thrower, but when he has to put the pedal to the metal, you see him kind of really put some velocity on the ball in tight windows. He is athletic enough. I don't think he's going to keep any defensive coordinators up at the next level as far as his athleticism to make plays with his legs. I think the biggest knock I have on him right now is the plus 50 throws, 50-yard throws down the field. He has a tendency to put too much air under the ball at times. I think he's got to learn how to, as we said, layer the ball in with velocity with touch at times. He just tries to, like I said, put too much air under there, and he underthrows some of those receivers. So I think it's all a matter of experience. But out of all the quarterbacks that I looked at, I thought he was the best and the one that's probably going to take another jump this year and will be clearly the #1 quarterback by the time everything is said and done.
Rick, would he have been, I know Rick loves hypotheticals, Mike, so fire away with the hypotheticals if you have any. Would he have been in the first round last year, and would he have been QB7 or higher for you?
I would put him ahead of Bo Nix.
Okay. And Mike is a big Bo Nix guy, by the way. I think I'm fair in saying that, right, Mike?
Yeah, I was a big Bo Nix guy. So I wouldn't have put him ahead Bo Nix, but I think it would.
Well, the only thing I would say is if Bo Nix threw the ball beside screen passes, then maybe we would have an argument here. But
Mike's used to defending this one. So what do you got, Mike?
I think, what was the stat that I had on him? He had more completions, 15 yards plus down the field, than Jaden Daniels did last year, Bo Nix. So he at least attacked down the field some.
Was it 15 yards in the air, or was it 15 yards, 5 yards?
15 air yards.
Air yards. Okay, let's make it clear.
All right, so let's talk about this. Mike, we'll circle back to you. We'll double up. We'll do comp and draft range, and we'll go around the table here. Rick is a stickler for good comps, so hopefully you brought your A game. If not, don't worry. My comp will make him angry, and you can slide by on that. So go ahead, Mike, and then Rick, you can follow, and I'll bring up the rear as usual.
My comp was Sam Bradford, the former Vikings QB, but obviously drafted by the Rams back in 2009. I just feel similarly that they both have some athleticism to the game, but it's not like an asset to them. They're pocket passers. The release, kind of just the real clean release, accurate throwers is what kind of got me with that comp, and the size as well.
What about the draft range? I think you sort of hinted at it. But just
draft range, yeah, I think he ends up top 5 when it's all said and done. It would have to be like a real tough season for him to not end up in that range, just because obviously like the need, and also just I think he's that good.
Fair enough. All right, Rick. First of all, how do you feel about Sam Bradford as a comp?
I just thought he was more athletic than Sam.
Sam's a pretty good athlete, isn't he?
Sam was, but he has no knees, so maybe I'm judging more on before and when he was at Oklahoma. But he was a really off the field, just seeing him play basketball and golf, he was a pretty phenomenal athlete besides. But I thought that Carson was a little bit better athlete. I thought that Sam probably had a little stronger arm and a little better touch right now down the field. So, but I think, like I said, to me, he's the clear-cut number one going into next year.
First round for you?
Oh, yeah. I think he's a top 10.
Okay, top 10. Some of the games I have circled: at Clemson, which is the opener; Alabama, of course, so September 28th, and then at Texas, the Quinn Ewers matchup on October 19th, excuse me. My comp, Rick, and I think he's a top 10 pick as we sit here. And so just in the same range as you guys. I said Jared Goff.
Well,
he doesn't hate it.
No, well, it's like 100 days. You still got 200 days of freedom of me being nice. So
once we get inside 100 days, Mike, Rick starts throwing haymakers. So he's being he's being nice here in the summer.
I wouldn't argue with either of those two comps. My comp was Drake May. Yeah,
Drake May. And the other thing, are you keeping to your rule from last summer? Is that you're shooting for the moon with these comps in the summertime?
Yep.
Okay, because that's
giving them the benefit of the doubt, and then I'll hammer them at the end of this next year. You go into a lot of optimism.
I was going to say, to follow up on what Mike said earlier about Carson Beck falling out of the top 10, a lot would have to happen. Mike, what if he played like Drake May next year?
Well, I didn't think Drake's tape was that bad in year 3. It was just the talent around him. And when you're at Georgia, the talent around you never goes away. So even if he loses, Lad McConkey and his tight end, who I'm blanking on right now, Brock Bowers. Even if he loses them, it's like they're going to replenish those positions. Already have.